Hello everybody. So dark mode is dead. Well, it's not dead. Most websites nowadays have an option to toggle dark mode on and off. And if you find a website that doesn't have dark mode, you'll be screaming, "Oh, how dare you burning my retinas." But what if you wanted something more? What if you wanted gray mode or Christmas mode or your favorite video game mode? That's why I decided to create a theme switcher for React, where you could create multiple themes and switch between them on your website. So here are the features I'm looking for. The theme switcher should switch between an infinite number of themes. The current theme should be available to all React components. Default light and dark modes depending on the user's operating system or browser preference. And the chosen theme should be persisted across user sessions. And the most important one is no flash of death on hard refresh for static site rendering. Okay, so let's get started. I have created a boilerplate with the default Nextjs template. And I have added some of my favorite themes to CSS variables. So I have theme Christmas, Fall Guys, Midnight Green, Space Gray, and theme Twitter Dark. And I'm using Tailwind with this configuration, so I'm just passing a couple of variables to the Tailwind configuration file. So this is just a basic boilerplate for me to start creating the theme switcher. So first, we need to use a CSS class to add to the body of our application, so it applies the custom styles. So I'm thinking about adding this to the body, and the best way to do this in Nextjs is probably have to go to the document, and then in the body tag we just add a class name, and this class name will be the name of our default theme for now. So let's say I want to apply theme Twitter to start with, and that should apply the colors that are specified in the theme Twitter styling sheet. So let's see. Okay, yeah, so it's using the dark mode of the Twitter theme, and it's adding the class to our body. And the goal of this theme switcher is to flip that class so we apply different themes. So for example, if we toggle that to be midnight green, and then let's refresh, that'll be a different color. Okay, so now that we have the body class, the next step is to create the context API that is going to hold the state for the application, and is going to hold the options to toggle the different themes. So let's get creating that context API. So I'm going to create let's create a new folder, and this folder will be called context, and let's create a new file. How are we gonna call this? Let's call it theme context.js, and then we are going to import React from React. And for the context API, we're going to use create context. So I'm just going to do it from the React object. Right, so we're going to do theme context, and we're going to do React dot create context. Okay. Also, for these to work, we need to have access to the local storage, and there is a hook pre-built for this. I'm not going to build a hook, but I'm just going to find the source code for it and create a new hook called use local storage.js. Again, the contents of the hook, you can find the source code, but I'm just going to find it and then copy and paste it, because just so we don't reinvent the wheel here. And just find it. Seems like this is the one. Okay, so this is just a very basic hook to use local storage, and we'll be using that hook from our theme context. So let's import it. So import use local storage. How do you call it? Use local storage from. There is the one. Okay. Yeah, it's a default function, local storage. And we need to create our theme provider. The theme provider is going to pass the context down to our application and provide a theme value to all our components. So let's create the theme provider. So export const theme provider equals, and it's going to get the children that we wrap, and it's going to return. Okay, so the first things we need to do in the theme provider is we need to initialize our initial value, which is the initial value of the hook. And so you could do const, let's call this theme, and use set theme, and we're going to use local storage to assign the initial value and the key where we're going to store it. So the key will be let's call this theme, and the key will be, the initial value will be null. So there is a gotcha here with this value set to null at the beginning, but you will see later what's going to happen with this null value. So we are not setting the default theme yet. Now, apart from the theme and set theme hooks, we need to export a function to toggle the theme. So we are going to do switch theme, and then this is a function that is going to toggle our different themes. So what we're going to pass to this function, we're going to pass the theme value string. Well, the new theme value, let's just call it new theme, and it's going to return, it's going to set the new theme in our context. So set theme, and we're going to use new theme. Right, so this only sets the new context, but as I explained before, the idea of this theme switcher is we're going to use the class. We're going to flick this class to create the different themes for our application. So the idea is that we are going to take the previous value or the current value of the theme. We're going to remove it. So the previous value will be this, for example, and we are going to add the new one that gets passed to this function. So that would be we will need to access the DOM, the root element. So before we switch a theme, we need to access the DOM element. So it will be const, let's call this root equals document.body, and we are going to remove and add the classes. So root dot class list dot remove, and we are going to remove the current value, and we are going to add the new value, new theme. Okay, so far we have initialized our the value of the theme and our switch theme callback function. Now the provider obviously needs to return, and we're going to return React some JSX that has theme provider, theme context.provider, and we pass children, so we're wrapping our children here, and we are going to provide the two functions. So the value is going to be just remember the syntax, hold on, not that one. We're going to pass the theme, the value of the theme, and the switch theme callback function. So it's available through our application. And finally, we need to export default theme provider. Okay, so we also need to export this one. Export the theme context and the theme provider. Everything looks good. Now let's add this provider to our application. So to add the provider to our application, we need to add it to the app.js. So let's do that. Import theme provider from what do you say, this context, theme context, and we are going to wrap the application in that theme provider. Okay, and we also probably need to pass, there are some options that we can pass to the theme provider, but for now I think this will be enough. Okay, just make sure our application is rendering. Okay, theme context is not defined, so I made a mistake in what did I do wrong? Okay, lowercase, this is exported, lowercase theme context. Okay, our application is still rendering. Now we have implemented the theme provider, so the state, the value of our theme will be available throughout the application. Initially it's going to be null. We will see why it's going to be null to start with, but then let's go. Okay, so the next step is to implement the callback to flick this value of the class. Okay, so we need to create a component that's going to take the switch theme function and then pass a new value. Okay, so let's create that theme picker. I think we need to create a new component, and then let's call it theme picker. And this component, we don't need to import React, we are using Nextjs. This component should just basically render a list of different themes, and then you can choose the one that you want. And I'm just going to make a little twist, so if you click the button it will just only show one button. So let's start by we need to create a list of themes. So I have an array of themes already, so I don't have to type it. So I'm going to iterate over this array, and this array will have the ID, which is the theme value that we're going to pass as a class, and a name so we can render it. Now let's call this the theme picker. Let's see if that's a good name. And then, okay, so the theme picker is going to we're going to pass the callback, so it's reusable. So we're going to get the theme, current theme value, and the switch theme, or just call it set switch. Well, doesn't really matter. I hope I don't get confused. And we are going to render a button that is going to switch the theme. So we're going to iterate over this array of themes. Let's see. How are we going to do this? Let's do mythemes.map. And we need the item and the index. Okay. What else we're going to need? We're going to return some GSX. We probably need the index, and index plus 1. Let's just leave the index for now. And we're going to return a button. And this button is going to have the item name, and what am I missing? I'm missing a parenthesis, I think. We're going to have a button, and that button on click is going to set the theme. So we need to pass the theme value to this button, but because I want to make that button disappear, we probably need some custom logic. So I think we just let's try this for now. If we do item.id, let's see if this works so far. We're going to use this in a minute. Okay, I think this might work. Let's try and render this. So let's see where we can put that button. I'm not gonna worry about styling. I'm just gonna put it somewhere right here or something. So it's just a quick placement. So I think that there is like a header component that I can use here. I think I probably added to, probably the layout will be the best place to add this. Let's try layout. So import, we call it theme picker from components, theme picker. Okay. And we will need to pass the context and the callback. So we will need to import theme context from context, theme context. And also we need to initialize it, const theme switch theme equals use context. Okay. And I need a React. Nextjs doesn't import React, so import use context from React. Okay, I need to pass the theme context here, and the application should be running. Layout has a problem right now. Let me see where I made a mistake. Oh yeah, I'm just destructuring correctly here. So it should be brackets. Still have a problem. Use context, theme context. Theme of undefined. Export theme, sweet theme, theme context. I'm importing it from the right place. So let's take a look. So theme context, that looks correct. And we're passing theme. The value is theme and switch theme. Okay. Strange. Okay. That make the difference? No. Cannot export a property theme of undefined. Use context, theme context. I think I made a mistake in the configuration of the theme context. React, create context, maybe here. Okay. It must be just a typo somewhere. Okay, I think this was a mistake. So I think I'm exporting the wrong thing. I meant to export theme context, no, theme provider. That is not paying attention to your default and named exports. So we need to, the default export is the theme context, which we're importing here. And the named export should be in the theme provider that we are importing here. Okay, yeah, that fixes the error. So back to our layout. So we have the theme context now hopefully configured correctly, and we need to render our theme picker component. I think I'm going to render it. Let's see, where can we render that? Let's render it in, I'll just put it here for now. It's theme picker, and the props that we need is the theme and the set theme, switch theme. Again, I'm messing up my default exports, looks like. So theme picker is not exported, of course. So export default theme picker. Okay, nothing was returned from rendered. Okay, so we are trying to return a button. So we're trying to render a list of buttons that will contain the ID and the name. So nothing has been returned from the render. Let's see why it's not returning anything. Okay. I'm returning a button. Okay, this is my bad. Okay. Seems like we have something. We have 3 buttons, and if I click this one, set theme is not defined. Okay, so we're passing theme and set theme from context, layout, switch, theme. Okay, it's just a typo here, and it looks like it's working. So we can switch between different themes. Now I don't like this buttons here. We're probably going to create a conditional rendering, so it displays only the button, and then if you click it, it will switch it to the next theme. So to do that, let's just make a small improvement to our theme picker. So to do that, we need the index, so we rotate the array. So we will set the next theme if you click the previous one. So with the index, I guess we can, I think if we do, let's see, what would be the best approach here. So the next theme will be, if it's the last one, it will be the first one. So we need to check first if we are at the end of the array. So to do that, so we're just doing the length, my themes dot length -1. So if it's the last one, so if we are at the last index, we are going to return the first one. So that will be my themes at index 0 dot ID. Otherwise, we are going to return index +1 dot ID. I think this might work. Still check it. Should work, and then we should set the next theme. Now I don't want to show all the buttons, I just want to show one and then rotate as you set the next theme. So I think we need a conditional rendering still. So what we need to do is a theme. So if theme ID equals the current index, then we render it. I think that will be the solution. Yeah, let's do that. So if the current theme is the current index, we don't need the return here, we're going to return this, otherwise return null. That should work. Okay. Now this, I think this logic is correct. The only issue is, let's see what's the current theme. The current theme is midnight green. And it cannot read the ID of null. Okay. So remember that we set the theme context, the initial value, if you haven't set anything, is null. And I think this is causing an issue here because the theme is going to be null on the first render. So to avoid that temporarily, I think what I'm going to do is, if this is defined, I'm going to pass that. Otherwise, I'm going to pass default theme. Hopefully that should fix the issue. Okay, yeah, fixes the issue. However, we still don't have the button. So the button, let's double check this logic. So if the theme is the current index, well, we're not checking the index actually. So the index, this is with the this is where the logic is getting wrong. So theme ID equals theme. So that's better. So the theme, the current theme, and the item ID, then we return the button. No, not yet. Okay, so what am I missing? Don't tell me that was the issue. Yeah, so I was missing a return statement, right? So theme is now midnight green, and then we switch it and it goes, yeah, that is perfect. Okay, this seems to be working. What happens if I refresh? So the theme is space gray. Okay, it's not saving the default theme, even though the theme is space gray. This seems to be taking the correct value, but okay, the body class is still midnight green. I guess it's because we are hard coding the theme value. My first approach would be adding the theme from the context, but I think the context is not ready at this point in the rendering cycle. So we probably need to move to the next part of this tutorial, and it's the most difficult one, and it's that flash, the flash of death. So sometimes you see websites that when you toggle between dark mode and light mode, you see like saying momentarily flash between light and dark. And that is because how things get rendered. So for example, if we static render this site, the value of the body tag will be midnight green, for example, but then when the hook that gets the local storage value runs, it will take a different value from local storage, which means it's going to show the default theme first and then the theme that the user has chosen after. To avoid this issue, we need to use a little bit of magic, and that magic is a script that is going to block rendering before the page is displayed to the user. It's going to check the local storage and then return the correct class in this tag. I actually found the solution for this in Josh's website. I'm going to show the link here. So I think it's Josh. he created a great explanation on why this is the best approach to fix the flash of death. So I'm just going to put it here. Basically, it depends on when your site is rendered. So with Gatsby and Nextjs, when you static site render your site, that value is going to be ahead of time. When the user visits your site, is going to be different. So he goes into a very deep explanation on why this happens, and he suggests the solution with a render blocking script, which is what we're going to do to use our solution. He has his solution for dark mode only, and he has the variables inside the script, but I think I found that it was just easier to use the class, because that way you're not putting a lot of CSS variables on the DOM that have to be created every single time, and that might get really big if your theme is quite big. So what we're going to do is we are going to create this rendering script that is going to block the rendering of the page and set the value of this tag depending on what is in the local storage. Or if it's hasn't been used before and local storage is empty, we probably we could get the value from the user preference if they are using light or dark mode in their browsers or operating system. Okay, so this is the difficult part of the challenge, and let's get rid of this tag first because we are going to add it programmatically, and we are going to add the script. So just create a new file in the components, and then we call it theme script.js, and we are going to create a JavaScript string that is going to get executed, and because writing string interpolation JavaScript is so complex, I'm just going to use a trick to just write the function normally and then just stringify the function and then export it as a component. So let's create this component that's going to create this script tag. So we will need React, and then we're going to create a function. This is going to be just vanilla JavaScript, so we don't want to use any new features in case someone is using it from Internet Explorer or something. So we're just going to create a vanilla JavaScript function, and that function is going to be called set colors by theme, and we are going to customize this. So the idea is that we could pass the default values to this function. So let's say default dark theme, default light theme, and we are going to add the storage key. So if you remember, we created the storage key in the context, so the key is theme. I'll probably need to pass the same value, so we'll check the local storage for that particular key, which is here. So I will need to pass that as a configurable option to the script. So let's call this theme storage key, and this is just a normal standard JavaScript function. Now the default values, we can get them from the user's operating system, or we could just pass a string. So the first thing is probably identifying if the user has a dark mode enabled on their operating system, and then set that as the dark theme. Otherwise, we're going to use the light theme. So we are going to create a variable called match media. Let's call it something like this. Doesn't really matter what we call it. And then we use the window object, and we are going to find if the user prefers color, forgot color scheme, and then dark. So if the user has enabled dark mode on their operating system, we are going to store that in this variable. So this will be a Boolean variable. Actually, we need to match it. So let's create another variable. So this is not a Boolean variable yet. So we're going to add a prefers dark mode, and it equals match media dot matches. There we go. Now we know if the user prefers dark mode, but we also need to make sure that the persisted preference is preserved. So if I prefer dark mode, but if I switch to light mode, I need to make sure that that on refresh ignores the operating system preferences and uses my own preference. So we need to get from the local storage that persisted preference. So local storage, get item, and we are going to pass the theme storage key. In this case will be theme. Now that we have the value, the next step is finding out if that value has been set, because this could be null. So var has persisted theme equals persisted preference. So if that is null, actually let's do type of persisted preference. Let's see if that is a string. So if that exists, then it's a string with a value. Then we will have this Boolean value telling us if they have chosen their theme. If not, we are going to use the operating system value. Okay, so let's create another variable, which is the color or theme class. Let's call it theme class, and I set it to string for now. So we are going to set this class with the value that we need. Let's see if we say if has persisted theme. We are going to use the local storage value. So that will be theme class equals has persisted theme, and the value has to be parsed from JSON, because this value is stored as a JSON file, local storage. So json.parse, and that will give us the string. So this string will be the default dark theme. If not, if we haven't selected a value, then what we can do is we can use the dark theme and light theme depending on the preference. So we are going to do theme class equals prefers dark mode. If it's dark mode, we're using the default dark mode. If not, the default light theme. Okay, so that seems to be working. Now there are two more things that we have to do. We have to set the initial value to our class, and also persist that on local storage, because next time that you visit the site, you want to make sure that that preference is saved. So first of all, let's add the class. So we need to get the root element, document.body, and we are going to set the class. So root.class, same as we did with our theme context. Okay, brilliant. Now, the last thing is set the local storage as well. So we need to do, but only local storage only has to be set if it hasn't been set before. So it will be here, and it will be local storage dot set item the same key and the theme class. Hope that's correct. I think we need to stringify this as well. So JSON.stringify. Local storage you need to stringify and convert from JSON before you can use it back in JavaScript. Okay, I think our function looks good. Now that we wrote our function, we need to convert this to a string. So it can be injected as a DOM element. So let's create a React component that is going to do that. It's going to return this string and add it as a script tag HTML. So let's call this component theme script tag. And it's going to, let's stringify this function. The function will be, so it's theme script. It needs to be a self-invoked function and it has to be a string. So I think with the backticks we can do that. We need to some ES6 magic. The name of this function is sect color by theme. And remember that we pass some parameters. So we need to also pass the default dark theme, which for me will be theme Twitter. The default light theme will be theme midnight green. And the default key will be theme. And maybe just format this a bit better. I think that will work. There is only one last thing, and is we need to create a script tag that takes the script as HTML and that returns the component. So let's use the best named property in React, dangerously set inner HTML, and we're going to pass the string that we just created. That's the one. And our default export. Okay, so this is going to be a React component that we can add to the body of our application, and it will execute this function before anything gets rendered. So the best place to add the script tag is the document. So we need to add it inside the body, so we can get the body element, and that should block any rendering until that script is executed. So what do we call the script? We call that theme script tag from using components. Where did I save it? Components theme script. Okay. We're going to render it, and hopefully something will happen. Okay, something did happen, not what we were expecting. Okay, we have our script is there, but our body doesn't have the correct class. So something went wrong setting the theme class. I'm going to delete the local storage just in case. Oh, boom. I think it was just because the previous one wasn't correct. So theme Twitter is the last one. And if I switch to Midnight Green is set. But we have a problem, and is not setting the element. So I guess the logic that is faulty is let's find out. So the logic when is not set is working. So it's setting that to persisted theme. The one that is not working is when it has some persistence. No, hold on. So which one is not working? If this is not set, that is working. So this one is the one that is fine. The one that is not fine is this one. So if I have set my theme, I have refresh, is not setting it. So something here is not quite right. Let's have a look. Okay, this is the problem. So this is the Boolean value. So if we are trying to pass a Boolean, not the correct value. So the value that we need to pass is a persistent preference. Just a tiny small mistake. Let's see. Okay, I think it's working. Yeah, that saved the preference. If we delete this, it should go back to default. Yes, it's default. And I switch it. Great. So that seems to be perfect. Okay, so I think this is the end. The last test obviously is the most important one, and is to make sure that this works when it's static rendered. So if you use Nextjs in development mode, it's always server-side rendering, so you might not get the correct result. So to do that, and then I'm going to build a site and then start it. So this is static site rendering, and hard refresh. Perfect. No flashing. Let's remove the key just in case. And let's do refresh. No flashing. Perfect. So this is the end of the tutorial. Okay, now in conclusion, you can create a better component to switch these themes. So for example, this was initially inspired by my friend Sam. He created initially created the component to switch the different themes, and he created something really cool. I recommend you to check his website. He has a lot of Easter eggs. So he created the theme switcher, but instead of a button, he created different list of buttons, and he has some Easter eggs. So the themes are not enabled. The only way that you can enable them is if you find them in the site. So check it out and find those Easter eggs. Also on my website, I have created the same functionality by added some animations. So for example, the Christmas theme has some Lottie animations that get triggered when that particular theme is enabled. So you can have many options using the React Context API to create this. And finally, for those who have reached the end, there is a small surprise. So I have packed this as a dependency, so you don't have to create it from scratch. So I created one dependency for Gatsby, which is the Gatsby plugin called Gatsby theme switcher. If I can find it and use theme switcher. I have created a Nextjs npm dependency, so it extracts all the logic that we have created today, and it's just very easy to use. So go and check it out. I'll put the link in the description. And I have also created a Gatsby plugin, which is very easy to add if you are using Gatsby. It's very easy just to install the plugin, and then you will have the theme switcher enabled by default, with all those benefits of persistence and also preventing that initial flash for static site rendering. So that is all. Thank you everyone, and I hope you see you in the next video.